another episode of Cypher Pro Tips. So I wanted to follow up a little bit on the last episode because that might have been a little bit kind of over the top, too kind of theoretical. And so I thought it would be helpful to break it down a little more with something a little more practical. So I'm calling this kind of nuts and bolts, practical programming for our CrossFit Cypher program that we do at the gym. Okay? And so I'm going to do a 2-week example here and try not to, get too crazy with it, but just give you something tangible so you can see how it actually plays out. But just real quick to revisit kind of our things that we care about that are really important overall for the program from last time, the hierarchy of movements. Okay, so that's something we're going to definitely use directly to help us with the program, in particular for the strength work. So doing the strength programming first I recommend it, honestly. It makes it gives you something tangible that you can start with and build upon. There's so many more types of metcons than there are basic strength workouts. You want to start with the one that has less permutations and has basically simple things that work good and build from there. And so I wrote down for the strength here, for the hierarchy of movements, basically the frequency that I try to use. So for the squat, 1 time per week in a focused strength element. That means basically going heavy with the squat. Okay? For the running piece, so this is actually not the strength element, but I'm just doing it in order here. I'm going to put monostructural more generally in parentheses, so that can include rowing, it can include biking, once or twice a week in the metcon. For the snatch and clean and jerk, for the strength again, we're going to hit that at least once a week, one of those in either the strength or the metcon. So we're not going to be too strict about going heavy on the snatch and clean and jerk, but we want to refine the movement, refine the skill one way or another. The pull up and muscle up, do try to get that in once a week, although sometimes it's once every other week as a dedicated element. But ideally, you guys will be doing that at least once a week, maybe even twice if you want to progress quickly. And then the presses or the handstand push-ups or handstand movements, again, once a week, either as a strength or conditioning element, though you can still get a lot of benefit from doing handstand stuff and pressing stuff in the metcon. So that's kind of the hierarchy and how that plays into the strength. And let me just go over the strength first in the 2-week kind of map, and then I want to revisit separately the metcon, because the metcon gets a little hairier, it takes a little more time. Okay, so really simple here. Here's 2 weeks, Monday through Sunday, just to get out of the way. Thursdays we do makeup, get ahead or recover, so there's no programmed workout that day. Okay, so that's easy, just cross that one off. Sundays are open gym, and the rest of it's kind of fair game. I'm going to go with Saturdays being a theme here. That's not kind of the standard hierarchy, but it could be also. But we'll just start with Saturdays being kind of off the programmatic path for starters anyway. Okay? So what do we do? Okay? Well, the strength here is in black. I hope you can see kind of the strength of the metcon in blue. And we start with the squat. Okay? So I'm going to use a little shorthand here. Monday is squat, 3 rep, 3 RM, plus some percentage-based work. Okay? Plus the drop-down sets, we call them. And there's a reason we do that. Okay? Basically, you can do 3 or 5s in the squat. We don't like to do 1 reps in the squat very often, maybe on a Saturday every now and then, so we can take the time to make sure everyone who needs a spotter can get one and do it really safely. It's also just not very beginner appropriate. The squat is mostly a skill we use to develop our strength to do the snatch and clean and jerk and other things, thrusters overall, and the risk reward for going maximal with it I don't think is there for the purposes of CrossFit. Anyhow, we do mostly 3 and 5 rep maxes. So this is a 3 rep for the day, plus some percentage-based work, and some accessories. So I'm gonna try to get in that strict pull-up work, or even just ab work. You see, we do that pretty often, okay? Wednesday is a press, okay? Presses we can be a little more loose with, because it's generally safer to go heavy with. But let's just say we're doing a 5 RM in either a strict press, a push press, or a bench press. It doesn't matter which, but over the course of weeks, we will cycle through those. So this is a 2-week rotation. Some of this stuff that cycles plays out over 4 to 6 weeks. So just keep that in mind, even though we're only looking at 2 weeks. And then on Friday here, we're gonna get in our snatch, our Olympic-based work, okay? And that could be, anything, but I'll just say we're gonna do triples, okay? Because you can do a little more skill work with triples than doing singles. We have something thematic on the Saturday, either strength or metcon based. I'm not gonna kind of restrict that. And that's it for the strength work for that week, okay? Pretty simple, okay? Don't get too caught up in the other stuff you see there yet. Next week, what happens, okay? So one thing I'd like to avoid is always doing a heavy squat on the same day of the week, partly because people's attendances fluctuate, also because we don't like to get too much into routine. Routine, they say in the CrossFit Journal, routine is the enemy. There's some truth to that, and you want to make sure you're not always expecting the same thing on the same day of the week. Anyhow, we do a clean and jerk on Monday. We do a squat for a heavy set of 5 RM on the Wednesday. We do a press on the Friday. Let's say we do a press for a set of 3 there, or 3 RM on that day. So you see the 5 and the 3 kind of complement one another, the 5 and the 3 complement one another there, and the snatch on Friday, followed by the clean and jerk on Monday. Kind of a pretty standard, pretty reliable strength template, okay? I will say that if you get too much into the template, you're restraining yourself and you're restricting the possibility and some of the interesting stuff you can do just with strength. But for the most part, you're gonna get good benefit out of following something like this. Basically, for the strength work and for the conditioning work, the same, we're trying to write a program where we're gonna get, or we're gonna provide the opportunity anyway for intensity, okay? Primary, okay? So most of your adaptations and your results in CrossFit, yes, you have to learn to do the movement safely. Yes, you have to demonstrate consistency in that mechanic. But ultimately, it's when you get to that level where you can attack the workouts, that's where you see the big progress in the strength and the conditioning. So intensity is number 1, okay? Even if we're not doing things different every day or doing things different every week, if we're intense, we're gonna get good results. Is it progressive, okay? I want a 5 RM one week, generally, not absolutely, but generally to be followed by a 3 RM the next week in the same or related movement, back squat, front squat. Why? Because that's gonna allow you to have a reference point in the 5 RM, okay, if you're tracking, and then go a little heavier, okay? So I want you to consistently, or at least periodically, be touching heavier and heavier weights, more intense and more intense movements, okay? This won't be all the time. You will have to kind of back off, and we see this all the time. People miss a day here and there, or they're just not feeling great. But we want to provide this opportunity where you're going to touch heavier and heavier weights, and you're going to become more comfortable doing that. And then when you come back to that 5 RM eventually again, you're going to be able to do more weight with it because you've been progressively overloading. I reference Prilipin here. There's something called Prilipin's chart. That's also a good reference to make sure people are hitting high percentages regularly and how much volume and how many reps and sets you need to do to make sure we get enough stimulus, basically, to guarantee progress, okay? But not to get into it too long, check out Prilipin's chart. We'll probably do another episode just about that and kind of the ins and outs on that. That's also why we do a lot of drop-down percentage-based work to kind of guarantee we get enough stimulus. Is it simple? Okay, you could do on the minute work up to a 3 rep max front squat. Is that a good idea? I would say probably not, and almost absolutely not in terms of the CrossFit context, because it's just a shit show. Okay, we don't want that. It's got to be simple enough so that you can apply yourself with intensity. Okay, if it's too complex, not only does it provide an opportunity for injury or just generally unsafe practices, but 2, you tend not to get as much intensity out of your work, out of your efforts, okay? And so it kind of is really a vicious cycle if you're doing too complicated strength pieces. Okay? The variance is important. Like I was talking about earlier, progressing from the weight you did with 3 reps, you can suddenly do it for 5 reps, you can suddenly do it for 7 reps, and so on. But it really is, for strength work anyway, kind of last on the list, because strength work is so simple. It's been a well-mined and established field for a long time. We know what it takes. We know how much volume and reps it takes to build up to a 400-pound back squat. Don't make your life complicated. Just do simple things that get you going that direction, and it carries over to so many other things. It's wonderful when we see people getting stronger, because it really raises the bar and raises all boats in the whole fitness package. Okay? So that was kind of just covering the strength. Okay? We're going to do the same thing with the conditioning basically, but I'd like to kind of revisit what our priorities are here. Okay? And just generally the things we think about. Okay? The same hierarchy applies, and it will tie in what you do with your conditioning for each day. Will tie into the strength work, but it's not necessarily the main focus. What I would like to revisit though is overall duration. Let me make sure you guys can see me on the screen. So we have, our sub 5-minute metcons. Okay, we have our 5 to 10 minute range, 10 to 15 minute range, 15 to 20, 20 plus. Okay, those are all domains we want to have balance in over time. We have our modalities, monostructural gymnastics, weightlifting, and modality combinations, which I outlined here. So single modality, just doing one of them, tying it to a time domain, or you can do a couplet. These are some couplets you can do here. Monostructural plus gymnastics, double weightlifting, it's all good. Triplets, I couldn't write down all the triplets here, there becomes too many of them, but as you can imagine, there's lots of different options. We just want to make sure we're having some balance over time. There's chippers, there's 4 movement workouts, 5 movement workouts, etc. Another thing I like to think about, and I didn't cover this in the last presentation, is just balance. That's kind of very generic, but what I mean by that is squat plus pull, okay? Combining a squat, or for example, a thruster with a pull-up, okay? Push plus pull, combining a handstand push-up and a deadlift, like in Diane. Anterior versus posterior, toes to bar, abdominal, rectus femoris, very anterior. Combining that with, a sled pull. That's a good example of anterior-posterior balance. And even on a very simplistic level, legs plus arms, okay? One movement works your legs, another one works your arms. Pretty simple, right? Why this is so important though, is that it ties back directly into our number 1 priority, which is intensity, or the opportunity for intensity, okay? What I mean by that, and kind of using a counterexample, is the workout JT. Okay, this is a CrossFit benchmark. It's actually a hero while it's a benchmark. I think it's 21:15:9 of handstand push-ups, ring dips, and regular push-ups. I don't know if it's in that order, but that's all pressing. It's all shoulders. It's all upper body. It's still a valid workout, and it's something that should come up from time to time, but that should not be the main focus of a good program, because local fatigue takes over and this goes, so the overall intensity tends to drop when you do workouts that are just anterior, legs, arms. And so while those are important to avoid getting too stagnant in routine, those should not form the basis of most of the workouts in your program, okay? Finally, the last thing I kind of squeezed in here is just skill level. And I mean actually both gymnastics skill level, weightlifting skill level, and also kind of light versus heavy. Okay, so using light weights relative to the person's ability, or heavy weights, how many reps am I going to program into that round or into that workout with that movement? That is highly dependent on what weight or what intensity, percentage, what have you, I have in mind when I envision this workout for the particular set of athletes. Okay? So how this all comes to bear, okay, in the conditioning here, is that we have a slightly different ordering of priorities, but similar. So we want that intensity first and foremost. We want some variance and novelty. There's so many different types of metcons. If you're repeating stuff with any regular frequency, you're probably missing a lot of stuff. You're missing the big picture of what's possible. People are still coming up. There's millions of CrossFit workouts out there that individual coaches at each individual gym have programmed. There's some that have become benchmarks, but there's just so many expanding possibilities. You want to be coming up with new stuff, not only because it fills the fitness puzzle better, but because novelty is something that keeps people coming back. It actually really increases the fun element, which, if you'll remember, was one of our major influences for the programming as a whole. Okay? Finally, though, it's got to be simple enough to digest. Okay? And like I said in the last one, the herding cats phenomenon, spending an inordinate amount of time explaining the workout or reminding athletes what the workout is, that's not where we want to be. In the long run, a lot of you will kind of like learn to read the board and just memorize it and be ready to roll in 5 minutes, but that takes a lot of time to develop, okay? And this will kind of come up against the novelty and variance element a little bit and kind of butt heads, but part of our job is to kind of keep a balance of keeping this going on while not making it overly complex. Okay, anyhow, getting on. We're already 16 minutes in here. I just want to show you how this kind of all fits with the Metcon here. So we have a dedicated strength day on Monday. We're going to do a gymnastics triplet. That's a benchmark, which would maybe be Cindy. Okay, Cindy's 20 minutes. Okay, so gymnastics triplet for 20 minutes in Cindy. Doesn't have to be a benchmark. That was just one that popped in my head because that's a triple gymnastics workout. The following day, we're doing a strength piece and a monostructural 8-minute conditioning piece, okay? So in general, anytime we try to do strength plus Metcon, the Metcon is gonna have to be of a shorter time domain than otherwise possible just because there's only an hour in class and this is gonna take at least 20 minutes. And shorter workouts are extremely beneficial and they should form a large chunk of our program. Monostructural though really means I'm gonna kind of simplify our lives in that it's gonna be something like the row or the run, something that's not super high skill that if we did spend 30 minutes on the press, we'd still be able to scrap together and get the Metcon done in like 15 minutes and with the warm up and everything, finish on time. Okay, Thursdays are day to make up or get ahead or recover, the snatch triple on Friday, and then a weightlifting monostructural 10-minute piece to go with it. Okay, again, kind of a moderate time domain. Anytime we're doing strength work, we got to kind of moderate the time domain. And maybe I can make this, the snatch double under open workout that they repeated actually, but it was originally from 2011. That kind of stuff fits well. Saturday, we're going with some theme. Maybe we're doing the partner workouts every Saturday, but I like to say we're just doing a partner workout this Saturday, okay? Whatever it could be. It could be lots of different things. I don't want to get too much into partner workouts because they tend to be more complex than individual workouts. Sunday, boom. Monday, we come back with the Grace. That actually ties in well again with the clean and jerk. So you're doing clean and jerks for strength. We drop the weight down a little bit and hammer out a 5-minute singlet weightlifting workout. Okay. Tuesday, I actually didn't fill in Tuesday here, but usually anytime we go really intense on Tuesday, I like to do something monostructural, 10 to 15. Maybe it could even be double monostructural, like a row plus run piece, okay? And maybe afterwards, sometimes on Tuesdays we'll lead with the Metcon and then finish with the strength element like, I'll just put bench in here, even though I have a press on Friday, whatever, bench for a heavy triple. Okay, and that usually follows well if it's not something upper body centric for the Metcon. Wednesday, squat for a heavy set of 5, gymnastics weightlifting couplet for 12 minutes. Okay. Thursday's recovery, Friday's a press, push press, strict press. You can even do a jerk from time to time for your press. And then a triplet here with 2 gymnastics and a monostructural for 15 minutes. Okay. Saturday's hero workout. Again, that's like assuming I'm operating with 2 themes instead of just the partner theme consistently. Long story short, you got to be able to zoom out here and see how there are patterns, but there's also just a little bit of chaos too, because 2 weeks is not really a sufficient window of time for the program to fully express itself. Okay. Generally, when we're looking at all the bits and pieces we want to fit in the program, we're talking about at least 8 weeks, probably even 12 weeks, and sometimes even longer than that. If you go much longer than that, though, it becomes really hard to even see what you did without some sort of a statistical backlog behind the scenes. Okay, and I tried doing that for a little while, but it becomes a little hairy. Okay. Bottom line is, there's a method to the madness. Okay, but I also would just like to reiterate that this intensity piece here. So this is basically all like happening in here. You know, there's a lot of interface between the CrossFit community and myself and other coaches we meet and we talk to, and there's all different kinds of programs. Some of them are really simple, some of them are really complex. You may tend to gravitate towards, as you progress in CrossFit, thinking that, you know, more complex programming, oh, it has more parts, that means it's better. Oh, they're snatching 3 times a week and squatting twice and doing 5 metcons a week, that means it's better. But not necessarily, because this intensity piece, again, if we spend a lot of our time just trying to figure out what we're doing or executing it well, we can lose some of that intensity. So, as Jason Khalipa says, a moderately well-designed program executed with intensity. Up here, a really complicated program that may be suited for some athletes, but maybe not your population. Generally, the intensity level is going to be down here, and that's not a good trade-off. I'd rather do something simple that gets good results, that people can apply themselves with intensity, have fun with it, a little bit of novelty, than do like the ultimate squirrel hybrid CrossFit Games program that people get kind of lost in, okay? So anyhow, this is a 2-week example of some of the nuts and bolts that goes into the actual weekly programming which we put out every Sunday. I hope it's helped you guys get some additional understanding into the layers of thinking that goes into the CrossFit Cypher Gym programming. Until next time.